Hi there, welcome to the Presgrove case. Today is kind of a viewer requested one indirectly where I share my thoughts, comparisons and analysis on the matter of, on the basis it was someone like Jack Newton or another person close to Noah, why of all days? And this is based on a theory, an idea, a concept around the theme of what if a loved one or someone that Noah knew was responsible for killing Noah? Why of all places? Why that time? Why that location? How come in the past nothing happened? With parties back then where people did get drunk and would have had alcohol months before, a year before, why not then? Why now? And I don't mean now as in 2024, but in the presence of 2023, September 4th. So that's what I want to do today. We are going to look back at the Dylan Rounds case in terms of the proximity, the environment. There might be some comparisons or even contrast, but it should help people's understanding as we go along. This will be a bit of a map analysis where I talk over it. So you got a little visual presence. We can see like the buildings, the locations, maybe talk about it as we go along, because there'll be some key markers on screen as well, the timestamps, the supposed events, see if that links in anywhere, any place, and I think it will. So welcome to those that are currently here in this live premiere. If you are here, share your thoughts in the live chat, right hand side of the screen. Down below, if you want to leave comments at the end of watching this video, or you're just simply watching on catch up, let me know your thoughts down below. You'll also find a pinned comment in the comment section with additional links if you do want to support this channel. And if you simply want to catch up on recent videos of mine, top right corner of the screen where the I symbol is, click up there, you'll find the full playlist and the video from last night. So without further ado, let's begin this video. Here we are. So we are zoomed out and you can see the great distance between Lucin, Utah and Oklahoma Terrell. Now, what's this all about? Well, Lucin Utah is the Dylan Rounds case previously, which I was going to be talking about and comparing. We're going to focus in, obviously, here first of all, to try and make sense of the situation. So based on the concept, the idea that Noah was killed by maybe a party goer of whatever age, of which individual, stranger or not, plays a big role and factor in terms of working things out. Because you got the party house down there. First of all, that's a key factor. Because it's a location. It's like a meeting spot, a hangout zone. And yeah, people have hanged out in the past elsewhere. Like Caden Pressey said, further north. Was it Duncan? Or somewhere around there where they would hang out in the car parks in the past and drink alcohol, have fun, meet up, and that's how they got to know one another with time, locals, hanging out, having fun. So it seemed all positive. And then fast forward years later, September 4th, 2023, why did it all go so downhill? What changed? Something in the moment or something brewing in the background for some time? Resentment, jealousy, building up, and eventually reaching the boiling point at the party, because it's a factor of the party being a meeting point. So anyone and everyone that may have issues with one another or a said specific individual, when they're in the same room, is where the problem could escalate. If all times before that they've kept a distance or not hung out as much, well then there wouldn't be as much room for any bad outcomes. But if you finally all do meet up or get together, all in the same room, not quite literally, but you've seen that saying before, in the same room as one another, what could actually happen? And that's not to say that Noah's death occurred inside of the building or just outside. It could have happened a bit further away. You never know. The concept of being dumped down there, well, I've done a video about that recently. Be sure to check that out for the reasoning about it. But if you didn't have a party at the time, would Noah still be alive? Yes. If there was a party but alcohol was taken away, would there still have been a death? Well, if it's on the basis of murder, there's a chance. Alcohol could be a slight deciding factor in terms of how it could raise the tensions and impair people's decision making and make some overly aggressive then when they're not normally, when they're sober, which results to a loss of control and taking it out on someone, the right person or not. But if there's an intent in the first place, there is a form of hatred or anger building in the moment or for some time, alcohol or not, you take that away, it could have still led to Noah's death. And in referring back to the party scenario, don't have a party, Noah still would be alive. Up until when? The next time they have a party, such as yesterday or the day before, would it have happened in 2024? If it didn't happen in 23, would it have happened in 2024? Now, it's not like you can get a clear answer to that, but you can at least talk about it. And that's what we mean on the basis that there is a form of negativity beyond that towards Noah. But why would anyone have a problem with Noah? Unless things in the background with time, not seeing eye to eye on stuff, or a form of jealousy, and people who are not within the circle or physically there aren't going to see it quite the same way. When it came to the Dylan Rounds case, the theme of jealousy, the theme of knowing the individual for quite some time is similar to the situation in this case. Only difference being Brenner wasn't exactly a full-on friend to Dylan or the family, even though articles did word it like that in the past and Candice Cooley dispelled that, countered it. But there was always that small chance that there was a level of neutrality between the people, at least before the bad things happen, in order for the likes of Candice Cooley to allow Brenner and Dylan to stay in the backyard of her place of living whilst doing custom farm work in a different state. I think it was Idaho, for 2 months. 2 months working together, 2 months in close proximity, and nothing happened. But then fast forward to 28th of May 2022, that's when it happened. Of all days, just a random day like that. Why? Was there any triggering points in between? Yeah, being present at the scene. If Dylan wasn't present at the scene, obviously he would have been alive up until a certain point. And I say up until a certain point because if Brenner had a hatred and was going to snap anyway, because he's already reoffended in the past over and over again, even dating back to the 90s and before. The Maryland shooting over a work dispute. History repeating itself with time. Pretty self-explanatory there. So whenever the next time round Dylan Rounds would be in the presence of Brenner, caught off guard or not, any little mistake in between and Brenner being in a mood, it could send him over the edge. Does that apply to the situation here with Noah Presgrove? At any point of the party? Well, we've heard about the arguments between different people. Saturday, Noah and Jack, best friend and best friend, having a go at one another, or one-sided, who knows. And then Sunday night, Mikey taking it out on Noah just because the phone of Mikey's couldn't find at the time. A little bit unnecessary. How violent was the argument? Wasn't exactly said. Monday morning, Jack and Noah once again, but this time described by Justin Roy and people of his family that were down at the party, said it was very aggressive, which doesn't sound too good if that's the last known form of communication before Noah disappeared and then later found dead. Bit of a physical altercation. You could look at it that way, at least. So you've got that. Then, post-news of Noah's disappearance, possibly post-news of Noah's death, you got Avery, Carter, sisters to one another, arguing on the front porch. What about exactly? Blaming one another for Noah's death, or blaming one another for Noah wandering off. You never know. Things can happen in the moment when it's quite tense, not quite thinking straight. Heat of the moment, it happens. But people make up afterwards and it's resolved. But for it to be documented at the time, supposedly, and in the hands of the police as well, a video or audio recording, makes it more interesting because for a person to record it in the first place, there must have been a reason to do so, documenting it in the moment of all things. And then feeling the need to pass it on to the police That's interesting. You'd only pass it on to the police if you think it would help the case. If you think there are certain individuals involved in the case. And that what may have been said in that argument between Carter and Avery was enough to convince the person recording it to hand it over to police. But what's happened since? Not much from the looks of it. Avery and Carter haven't been taken in, so maybe that argument wasn't that significant? Or is it just pending? Waiting for more evidence along the way to build the case and make it stronger? What do you think? But what I'm getting at is a range of different arguments at the time. What was the general theme around Noah Presgrove? Jack and Noah, Saturday, Monday, arguments. Sunday, Noah and Mikey, argument. Monday morning onwards, Carter Avery, argument, probably about Noah. The theme revolves around Noah here, Noah there, Noah this, Noah that. It's all about him, and that's not in a narcissistic way, but that's what seems to be the main focal point. You can argue it is because this case is all about Noah because of what happened to him, but it would be nice to see it from other viewpoints and other arguments. But if simply most of the arguments were about Noah, well then that's kind of an interesting point. It's like when a VIP guest arrives, all the eyes and all attention focuses on them. When we look at the video party footage, just about all of it was about Noah being in the shot, in the camera. A small little section where you had Brylan Sweat and Mikey in front of the camera by themselves. Caden Pressy's little clip as well, just pointing towards the kitchen where most of the partygoers were at the time. But still, majority of that compilation video that we saw, it was Noah in the shots, by himself or with some girls, with the group of them. Was there any jealousy in the background from other males? I wonder. But what I just want to get at is, if anyone had a problem with Noah prior to the party or in the moment, to have a party, to have a meeting point, to bring everyone together into a rural area with limited surveillance because the cameras aren't working supposedly at the place, away from a form of civilization and certain services, because it is in a bit of a desolate place, isn't it? With not really any other witnesses present or neighbours down this road from the looks of it. To bring everyone here is kind of like a golden ticket for the inevitable to happen. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you've got certain individuals that don't like someone and they just happen to be in the same room as one another, how do you think it's going to go? That's one way of looking at it. I know they didn't have a problem before, but they do have a problem after. Why is that? Oh, because they're together. They're in the presence of one another. Now, a party, anyone can have one for whatever reason. You know, okay, the alcohol situation, that can be a problem. Just put that aside. A party shouldn't be demonized as evil or wrong, but it can play a certain role in the death of Noah because it was a meeting point, a gathering zone, ground zero, where it all started off and then what it led to afterwards. And to tie in with that connection, if I can possibly do so, we go to Lucin, Utah. And don't worry, you might not be aware of the case, but I'll try and explain it to you if it's possible. So, apologies if it doesn't quite load in, it's just because, Google Earth moving about too fast. What we're looking at here is Lucin, Utah, okay? Look at how desolate this place is. This is all like desert type land with a couple of dirt roads going down. Population of the area, it was described as 4 or 5 people in this entire area. Now maybe there's been more people since, but that's how it was described at the time. You got desolate type farmland, an abandoned railroad community, parcels of land owned by different people, but not by people that actually live there. And then you got the grain shed property where it all really started. Grain shed property right here. Now, whilst this is updated and it won't show the original trailer of Brenner's, Brenner's trailer was roughly there, centre of the screen. I'm not going to click on the marker because it will get rid of the Lucin marker and I won't be able to refer back. But right there, nearby Brenner's trailer. Dylan Round's farm, if we just head down this way, here we go. You can see the abandoned pivot. Can you see that circular? That's the pivot, main line. And that's where the water would come out of as it would rotate all the way around 360. And then this patch down here, although abandoned now and just about pretty much empty, with the odd vehicle, as you see there, laying about, or trailer, now abandoned, of course. That's where Dylan Round's trailers were. Now, in news articles, it was described that Dylan Rounds lived here. He did not. He worked here, but he did not live here. With the exception of 1 or 2 days sleeping at the place if he was doing long farm work. But all the other times, he would be either doing custom farm work for other people to make money to fund his own dream, or he would be, was it a triangular format, could be going to the grandparents, could be going to friends of friends, his own family parents for events, hanging out, or even Montello and supposedly hanging out with Kurt Wadsworth, etc. And it just so happened that the 28th of May 2022, around, what was it now, 5 in the morning onwards, Dylan, all he had to do was park his grain truck in the grain shed over that way. So he did so, driving on down, reaching the Sun Tunnels, as you see here, taking a right turn. Upon getting to a gate, which may or may not have been locked at the time, the first key prominent timestamp was 6:51 a.m. is when Dylan Rounds called his grandmother Karen Rounds and said what he was going to do, park the truck in the shed and call back afterwards. Obviously that never happened, no call back. At 6:58, then Dylan made an attempt to call Brenner, the murderer, or the coming up murderer, living down there at the trailer on the Grainshed property. Didn't pick up. Would it have made a difference? Who knows? Whether this gate was locked or not, suppose he claims of there's a key nearby, so you could have unlocked it, and if not that, you could have flattened the gate down. It was a bit of a wire with a little wooden pole, very fragile. So regardless, Dylan passing on through, driving on down to the Grainshed property here, and supposedly making an attempt to park it in. Now, the last known timestamp of Dylan Rounds being alive was 7:03 a.m. The next key timestamp was of a time-lapse video in which Dylan's phone was inside of Brenner's trailer, which showed Brenner cleaning his hands full of blood and his arms and his shirt with blood on, cleaning a firearm, which just so happened to be, whether it's that firearm or another one similar, just so happened to be the cause of death for Dylan, which was later found out in 2024 or so, that Dylan Rounds was shot multiple times in the head near to the Grainshed property, if not inside of the Grainshed. So you think about it, Dylan Rounds parking his truck in the shed, or at least attempting to, supposedly that the shed may or may not have had the horse gate closed within, which crashing into it, because we saw photos after of one of the horse gates being bent and damaged, could have triggered Brenner. That breaking point. Already had jealousy with Dylan in the past for his handling of equipment, being reckless at times, from Brenner's own mouth when the father of Dylan, Justin Rounds, overheard that conversation back in winter of 2021, I believe, at Justin's workshop, when Brenner was talking negatively about Dylan behind the backs of Dylan and Justin, the father, to his friend Don Hatley, and it was going on and on. So, early telling signs. And even in the past, some years ago, 2020 maybe, or still 2021 roughly, that when Dylan Rounds was with Brenna doing some things, moving pigs or so, opposite a house of Justin Rounds' family, Justin wasn't quite pleased with it and kind of had a go at Brenna. Brenna didn't like the way he was spoken to, and when Justin left, or when Justin wasn't around at least, Brenna set out and Dylan witnessed it. Brenna said, "I'm going to kill Justin Rounds." Dylan's own father receiving a death threat by Brenna. Early red flags, warning sign. The moment someone issues a death threat towards your father, but Dylan didn't take it too serious or didn't see it as much of a problem. Fast forward to 2022, it wasn't the father getting the death threat, it was Dylan Rounds, literally. Because linking back to that timestamp video, it was 7:27 a.m. So within a 30-minute period of Dylan Rounds making it back to the Grainshed property, 30 minutes of either being able to successfully park it or an attempt, that's when he was taken out and shot in the moment. It's been described as not premeditated, not pre-planned, but heat of the moment, a snap mentality. Someone like Brenna can snap because he has snapped in the past. Someone like Brenna can snap because similar things have happened in the past and it's resorted to violence, physical, shooting his gun or a firearm. So if it's happened then, it can happen now. And it just so happens that in the background, that there was a level of jealousy, hatred, form of ageism building with time. Maybe Brenna didn't like the position that Dylan was in and wasn't grateful enough or wasn't careful enough. That Brenna wished he could have had what Dylan had at the same age, but Brenna didn't, maybe. So Brenna wanted to take that away from Dylan. Brenna had enough. And that horse gate possibly being broken, or that commotion when coming on down when Brenna was trying to sleep, was enough to send him over the edge, and in the moment took it out on Dylan. But that's the thing. Of all the times before that, when Dylan was around Brenna, nothing happened. When in Idaho, can we get to Idaho from here? Where's Idaho? There we go. When in Idaho, Candice Cooley lives somewhere, you had, as I said, Brenna and Dylan both doing custom farm work elsewhere, but together in the same trailer or in separate trailers, but in close proximity to one another for 2 months straight. Nothing happened then, but there could have been an opportunity for it to occur, yet it didn't, because it probably just wasn't the right place, wasn't the right time. Brenna wasn't in the right mood to kill, as bad as that sounds. So you can be close to someone in different ways, proximity, a working relationship, or a form of neutrality. Not quite friends, but still able to get on with one another, cooperate, hang out in a way, but in a work-based way, still getting on with things without much trouble. And even in the presence of the mother, Candice Cooley. No issues there with Brenna or the mother. But nowadays, the mother will say that we're never friends of Brenna. Brenna was never friends with the family. Not at all. It didn't seem to be a problem back then when things were neutral. Things can change with time drastically. People don't want to associate with people anymore after bad events. It happens. So with the Noah Presgrove case, people can be friends or neutral with one another as in the past. Nothing happened then. So why is it happening now, of 2023 at the time? Because it was just the right place, the right time for the wrong things to happen and for someone to possibly snap and lose it. If there was a triggering factor at the party, something that Noah did, something that Noah said, maybe not done intentional, maybe not done nasty, could have been misinterpreted through the alcohol consumption and impairing one's judgment and ability, or heightening their senses and making them extra aggressive than what they are, losing control and then taking it out on Noah. There's different ways of looking at it. But if there is like some kind of pre-built jealousy, like the Dylan Rounds situation with Brenna back here, but at the end of the day, Brenna already had a plan as to what he was going to do in the day. He was going to go to Don Hatley's because it just so happened to be Memorial Day weekend. Isn't it a weird pattern? How it happens on the weekends or close to the weekends following over a celebration, a event. Now, the reason why Dylan Rounds was at the Grainshed property is because he had to finish off with farming related work. As for Brenner, well, he lives there, or squats there, some people claim. Brenner would have gone to Don's anyway afterwards. He still did after killing Dylan. And what? Was able to look his friend Don in the eyes and act like nothing happened? Very interesting, isn't it? And not really reveal much at the time, or for quite a bit, for like a year or two, for sure. But still, yeah, it would have been 2 years because I think it was 2024, April 9th, when it started to come out, when the location was revealed and a plea deal was made. Yes. And then onwards, that's where it all started kicking off and progression moving forwards. But it's just interesting, that little pattern and theme of Memorial Day weekend 2022, Dylan Rounds murdered. Labor Day 2023 in Oklahoma, Noah Presgrove possibly murdered or killed. Isn't it interesting, the timing of when it happens at events during celebrations? Now, it kind of makes a little bit more sense with the Noah Presgrove case in the proximity to one another, a gathering. In this situation, back in 2022, it was not a gathering, it was just simply Dylan wanting to finish off some farm work to then get off and go back to visiting family or hanging out elsewhere. So Dylan wasn't intending on sticking around here. Brenner was up to a certain point, but there was a bit of conflict when they were in parallel to one another at the time. Now, what happened after 6:27 a.m.? Well, it was, I think it was like 7:43. It got up to 7:43 a.m. when the phone was still static, not moving about, when after 7:43, Brenner, in possession of Dylan's phone, ended up going down to Dylan's property. What for exactly? To steal things, to look about for opportunities in disposing of the body or other things. 30 minutes here. Then at around 8:03 onwards, the phone pinged back at Brenner's trailer, so he made it back. And then after that point, the final phone ping timestamp was 3:51 p.m. And that was near to Lucin Pond, which the phone was later found dumped in Lucin Pond, I think on the west side. And that was 18th, 19th of June 2022. Okay? So you see the little timestamp there, the phone pings. Do you see how I've told you the story? Now, there's a lot more to it, but you can look back at my videos. I've got over 496 videos on the Dylan Rounds case, I believe. I could possibly add this to the same playlist because there are some links to be made. It's a crossover video. But you know why I could tell you the story and recount stuff? Because obviously I can remember it, first of all, but more so importantly, it's because of the phone pings, the timestamps, the clarity. But take in mind, there were less people within the Dylan Rounds case at the time. A lot of people like to involve themselves online and in the community. That made it very convoluted. But in terms of physically, in the presence, in the moment, you had Dylan Rounds, you had James Brenner. That was really it. On the sideline, you did have some witnesses. You did have Walter Michelle. You did have Don Hatley, a person of interest. A couple of people on the sideline. But it wasn't that convoluted. Because the ones that talked or spoke the most, there wasn't too much of that anyway. It was pretty silent. But what was collected with time was the phone pings of Dylan's phone, tracing it where it went and how it ended up here and there, my extensive map analysis to make sense of it, a fair portion of it being true and correct as usual, and reinforced with facts within the case and knowledge with time, and tying it all together. It follows a certain direction. It's direction-based evidence Something that lacks in the Noah Presgrove case. You got timestamps, you got different events, you got different people, 30 to 40 people or so, retelling their stories. It's going to be all over the place. There's so much to process and try and pick up on. If you could narrow it down to 5 people only at the party house at a time of where it was critical with Noah Presgrove going on to his death, if there was only 5 people and you only had to focus on those individuals and timestamps, it could be a lot easier. Because as you know, if we refer back to the situation with Noah Presgrove, just find it for a second. There we go. If we return back here, yeah, there's a handful of timestamps, but the difference is it's a combination of Caden Pressey's timestamps, stuff that Jack Newton has said, stuff that Jasmine Millan has said, and it doesn't mean to say that it's all true, but it kind of fits or follows a certain order of things. It doesn't overlap from the looks of it, but still, I wouldn't say it's strong enough, because what Jasmine has said maybe isn't what Caden has said, and what Caden has said isn't what Jack said. All individual different stories, and some people change more than others, like Jack Newton does. That's problematic. So when trying to work it out, it's a bit messy. And just as an example, you got some timestamps here. Caden Pressey sleeps 2 a.m, wakes up 42 minutes later because of his mum calling, just acknowledgement about the cousin being brought back home safely, all okay. Caden going back to sleep close to 3 a.m, but the likes of Jack, Noah, Jasmine are awake around 3 a.m, which you would expect based off what supposedly happened around that time onwards. Supposedly ATV incident, even though some people still claim till this day that it happened Sunday night, which is weird, because if it was Sunday night, truly Sunday night, and not to be mixed up with early hours of Monday morning, then Noah should have had a wash much earlier on. Why would there have been a delay? So I still think it's Monday morning. Then assisted shower in between 3 to 3:30, because no definitive timestamp has been given. But one could be given if the bloody shower footage was censored but shown publicly, or at least the timestamp of it, with no silly overlays or overlaps to confuse people, right? It would help a lot. Sleeping debacle, Avery Combs' bedroom, Logan's bedroom, Noah trying to sleep in each person's bed, didn't quite work out, Goldilocks situation. But Noah supposedly had no issues sleeping on the floor in Avery Combs' bedroom the Saturday night, so why would it be an issue Monday? Change of mood, change of tone, and if Noah truly did call out Avery Combs and said an insulting word, is that the beginning of the downfall, where things spark in the wrong ways, there's a bit of resentment in the moment, a bit of hate, a bit of negativity, a bit tense, the alcohol, whether that be like a come down effect, wearing off, people being moody, or still people being drunk. You can see how it may escalate. The fact that you've got Jack Newton with the argument with Noah just before walking off, and it was supposedly very aggressive and pushing and shoving, but then you've also got Avery, the last person to see Noah wander off outside, and then also Logan being dragged into it all by Jack, saying she was the last person to see Noah wander off. Who was at the end of the day? Were they all after Noah, or were they all trying to follow him down? Because it's the thing, most of these individuals were inside the house. Noah was as well, from the looks of it. Noah supposedly walked outside of the house to cool off. To walk away? Who knows? But in doing so, people followed Noah, from the looks of it. People weren't outside. Now, my question would be, was anyone outside when Noah was exiting the house? Was anyone already waiting there? Was anyone down the roadway or near to this house where Noah could have been ambushed? If that was the case, would that come across as pre-planned? You could think of it that way, unless it was in the moment and Noah walked past somebody else, an exchange of words, and it kicked off from there. What I'm getting at is, you got a range of different people, all in the same location, higher chances of something going wrong because they're in physical reach of one another, and a range of opportunities for something to go wrong. The more people present, the higher the chances of an argument breaking out. The bigger the crowd, the higher chances of a possible brawl occurring. You got a small group, tight-knit group of people hanging out, maybe not as problematic. You got a massive crowd of supporters and opposition at a football game, at a UFC event, something could kick off. And if there's any alcohol involved, it'll only intensify and increase the chances. So for Dylan rounds in the presence of Brenner on that day, wrong place, wrong time. Brenner already had issues with Dylan, triggering point on the day, such as a broken horse gate with clattering noises, possibly sent him over the edge. Then Brenner went outside. What are you doing here? Why are you here so early in the morning? And then decides to shoot Dylan. You might think it's hard to believe, but that's how it went. You look back at the case, you'll see the facts and how it's been talked about. Things like that can happen, so things like this in the Noah Presgrove case can happen too. Oh, you've known someone for so long. Does it really matter? I knew someone for over 11 years. It didn't stop them from suddenly turning on me within a week and then outright bullying me and getting very nasty within just 1 week. And then me distancing myself afterwards, when in high school. If I can know someone for over 11 years and be a best friend to them and vice versa, and then they treat me like shit afterwards, anything is possible. So I can talk from extensive experience from such a young age. I might have experienced a range of different things in a small space of time. It says a lot, doesn't it? It's pathetic, but that's reality. So you can apply it here. Was Jack truly a best friend to Noah? Or is that just like the title and term what they like to use? Because take this in mind, Noah Presgrove is not present right now to comment on Jack, whether he was a best friend or just a friend. You look back now at, Caden Pressey's telling of events and his emotion and reactions. Caden Pressey appears more of a best friend than Jack does to Noah. And that's just based off behaviour, body language, what we've seen, helpfulness, consistency. We can't minimise Jack too much or do a witch hunt against him, but just when you look at the surface level at least, it seems like Caden has shown more emotion. It seems like Caden has tried to help more and been more consistent, which is helpful in terms of the understanding and learning behind people when looking into this case, whereas Jack has switched and changed with time, but more so recently has changed it up completely with the story of the shoe situation being here, that Noah was only found with one shoe on and his other shoe was missing. Now, in terms of the original story, Noah was wearing mismatched shoes found at the highway. He was wearing them. His own Adidas one and Caden Pressey's Hey Dude shoe. As for Noah's other Adidas shoe to fit the pair, that is missing. But what Jack was getting at was Noah was only wearing one shoe on at the highway, so where was the other mismatched shoe then? At the highway as well, or taken? So that means two mismatched shoes are missing? You get what I'm saying? 2 pairs? That's what's weird. And yet the official autopsy result, news articles and beyond have confirmed that Noah was wearing a pair of shoes, mismatched ones, at the highway. He was physically wearing them dead on the ground, and yet Jack's saying only one shoe was on the body. Why change it up when there's more stacking against Jack with the actual truth and Jack's going against that? Makes no sense. It doesn't do yourself any favours unless it's just another attempt, a desperate attempt to try and sell the concept of a hit and run. Because people in the early days did say in a hit and run, if you do get hit, sometimes shoes can go flying off. So did Jack take notes in the background when lurking on people's videos or pages, discussions, and thought, oh yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. Next time I retell the story, I'll add that little detail in. Unaware that, officially, there's counterpoints to him, making his points more invalid. But anyway, you got a range of different people which we've looked at who may have had an issue with Noah, or there was a bit of confrontation, a bit of arguments on and off. The factor of they're in the right place at the right time, they're together, the event at the party, gathering together, close proximity within physical reach of one another, meaning anything could happen if anything went wrong. If it's great distance between two people online, well, not much is really going to happen in the moment, but when you're physically there in the moment, you can touch one another, you can slap one another, like what we saw when messing about at the party between Noah Brown Sweat, Noah and Shandy on the Saturday. So it can happen, but it could have escalated. Fist or additional items. But that's on the basis of a possible death murder. That's on the basis that a possible known individual to Noah was responsible. Even though Madison Rawlings, the sister, says she hopes that it wasn't a loved one of Noah's, because Noah would feel betrayed by that. At the end of the day, when you look at true crime cases, isn't it normally said that when a person is killed, it's normally by someone that knows the individual, whether that be a family member, a friend, a colleague, or something like that? It makes you think. But you will still get the possibility of strangers. Now, why of all days, when nothing happened in the past with Noah, if Noah was somewhat of a positive person and people regard him in a positive way, why would anyone take it out on Noah? Besides people that know and understand Noah. If it wasn't someone that knows or is friends with Noah and it's a stranger, why of all days? Because how often is Noah in the presence of strangers like the Texas boys? Ask yourself that. You got a party with a group of strangers invited by Avery, supposedly, much older individuals. Noah is alien-like to those people, so they may not see eye to eye at the time, but they're in proximity to one another. They might not get on well. I mean, in terms of the party footage, what we've seen, yeah, Noah looked like he was having a good time. He was getting on well with people. Happy, smiling, singing, dancing, but that was around people he was friends with and knew for some time. How much video footage is it of Noah dancing or singing, hanging out with the Texas boys or other strangers beyond, regardless of age? I've yet to see that. As for the side-by-side incident, even though it's been talked about over and over again, no definitive answer as to who else went into the vehicle whilst Noah was driving. Who got into that vehicle? Was it a group of strangers? Or was it a group of friends? If it was a group of strangers, they might have had a bit of resentment in the moment or frustration, but Noah tipped it over and made them dirty. You know, petty little things, people can overreact. We've seen it, the microcosm of online drama, that humans get so triggered. We saw last night a pathetic excuse of a human, a individual called Jennifer with a grey profile picture, decided to tell Warlight Raff off for covering this case and keeping it alive. I was told that I shouldn't be doing a video on the day and I should keep quiet and respect Noah. You know what, Jennifer, and every witness who's watching and watched at the time, I predicted this. Warlike Raff predicted it and got it right yet again, because days before, I did a little add-on saying, just as a heads up, if anyone was to come to my channel and tell me what I can and can't do, they can get fucked. It happened because it's so predictable. Human behavior is so predictable. At times, default profiles, some, not all, can be problematic. I saw it in the Dylan Rounds case extensively. I'm starting to see it in the Noah Presgrove case extensively. It's pathetic. And just to reinforce once again, there'll be the odd person in the background connected with a key individual, which passes on the message that Warlight Raff, what you're doing is good, and they appreciate. We don't need to say no more, but that's good enough. That shows things are under control. We don't need third-party pegging parrots or parasites to tell me what I can and can't do when they have no direct connection to key people in the case. It's just a opinion. Just like some unpopular opinions where those say that Warlight Raff's accents aren't good or accurate enough. Yet the majority of the human race have said that my accents are good, and people from the actual areas I impersonate have said they're very accurate. So for the minority that have an issue, it's just a they problem, a them problem. Maybe they lack the comprehension skills. It is what it is. Maybe they like the sound of their own voice more than anyone else, so they block all the other noises out. That's unfortunate, but oh well. Let's refer back to this. So, if it's not a friend, if it's not someone related, well, in terms of connections, I should say, and proximity with Noah, if it's none of that and it's a stranger, the chances of something bad happening could be even higher in a way. You put two strangers in a room, it could go many different ways. If you don't see eye to eye on things, you don't have the same understanding or sense of humour, You're not as lenient towards them because you don't know them. See, this is the thing. You can play a prank, you can say a joke, you could possibly insult, you could play fight, whatever, with a friend, a long-time friend, and they may respond back positively in a fun way. You try doing that to a stranger, you slap a stranger, how do you think that's going to go? You play a prank on a stranger or tell them a joke or an insult, how do you think they're going to react? Everyone reacts differently. And there's going to be less leniency when it comes towards a stranger, towards Noah. How would Noah have felt in the moment? Not when he may have been attacked, but when he was at the party. Okay, positive, happy for most part of it, supposedly. But Sunday night, when the strangers and the majority came on down, because supposedly the majority were strangers and alien-like people to Noah, how did Noah feel? Did Noah get on well with the strangers, the Texas boys, and anyone else in between? Or did Noah keep to himself and stick to his friends who he knew? And how did Jack interact with the others as well? Because of the age differences, the mindsets, the mentalities, maturity or lacking of it, how it changes with time as you grow up at times. You know, was there a difference? That's what we don't get to hear of. We don't see any explanations of what was Noah doing, how was Noah, how did he interact with the massive wave of people coming on down and the strangers. We don't get to hear that side. Why not? And how was Jack towards the strangers too? Any strangers, party goers coming late that were friends connected to Avery but not to Noah, but with Noah calling out Avery and saying you're a fat beeb, and Avery being triggered by that, was there any strangers or Texas boys present in the moment, 3 in the morning of the sleeping debacle in which Avery may have gone after Noah, but at the same time, friends of Avery were like a vigilante group and teached Noah a lesson? More likely to teach Noah a lesson because that group don't understand the relationship between Avery and Noah at some point in the past. See, the best example I can give in terms of how a group of strangers can come off very defensive and take it out on you when you may have a problem with someone else, or it comes across that way when it's not really the case, but that person you may have tension with, or there's a misunderstanding, they are friends with those strangers and those strangers aren't friends with you. So it's not connected, all the pieces. There is a disconnect, there's a misunderstanding. So I'm going to give you an example right now, and it's not a negative thing, it's not conflict, but in the eyes of some it was. So, when you had Bell v. Dylan Round's case community, true crime community, YouTube streets, direct, indirect, where you had the handful of people gathering around, the Watchers, the Crazies, the Bell V's, the Jim Terrys, Pancakes on and off, Buster Bitchimers, or whatever, the Stranglehold individual, which strangles people, the Cackler, and anyone else in between. People on and off hanging out. Bell V has her own channel, good sense of humour, at least to my knowledge, but Badger Life may not see eye to eye because supposedly Bell V has done negative stuff to me in the background. I don't know what the hell's going on there in the past, but it was never really explained, so that's unfortunate. But at the time, lightheartedness, messing about, not in a serious way. And then at some point I did a response to Bell V, either in a video or a comment on their channel, and one of Bell V's friends or bitch boys called Bricky or something, some individual from the UK, typical when it comes to UK people having a problem with me, I detest it, okay? But nevertheless, when it comes to that individual, Bricky, or also known as Bricked Up Bricky, didn't quite understand the flow between me and that channel called Bell V in terms of messing about and lightheartedness. So Bricky took it serious and decided to say, back off, Warlight Wrath, you shouldn't be talking to them in that way. And I'm thinking, excuse me, you impetuous twat, get a grip of yourself, learn, listen, look, understand. And it was resolved. But you can understand from a stranger's perspective, who may be friends with that individual like Bell V, but don't know me, and if I say something which could come across as negative towards that stranger, in which I'm saying it towards that person's friend, such as Belle V, there's going to be a misunderstanding. And those strangers can come across more defensive. So, linking back to the party situation, would it have happened Monday? Well, it depends how many people were there at the party on Monday. But Sunday night, if there was a bit of a delay or there's a bit of resentment building, things can carry over in a space of hours. So if Noah said something to a individual from the party who Noah is friends with and may have been closer to in the past physically in an intimate way, and it came across negative, or in the moment it was negative, but anyway, Avery would have forgiven Noah hours later or a day later, like how friends normally do so. But in the moment, a group or a person, stranger, friends with someone like Avery, but not friends with Noah, may see it only one-sided and be very defensive and protective of Avery, then take it out on Noah. And that's a step too far. Could that link to Avery and Carter at the front porch later on, post-death, post-news, where they're arguing, saying, it wasn't supposed to go that far. You know, my friends, my visitors shouldn't have done that to Noah. That's a scenario, that's not a fact. Just understand that. You can see how it could go. People can act on behalf of you. People can white knight. Sometimes you get males that go beyond and above to please a female in natural or unnatural ways. And it's a step too far. Oh, you're going to go out of your way to kick the beep out of someone and put them down just because that person said to that female a swear word or one insult? Bit too far. A little bit too soy boy-like behaviour there, trying to appease or please someone else of a different gender. Different ways of looking at it, of course. It doesn't have to be directly that specific theme. You can get an idea. Just the fact that this proximity, okay, where a range of people gather, it's like the beginning of it all, isn't it? It's ground zero. Just like the Grainshed property of where Dylan met with Brenna. Wrong place, wrong time, the gathering point, and then the events unfolded from there on. And in terms of that situation, just to refer back to once again, if I can get to it, just about all the events unfolded at the Grainshed property, right? Upon Dylan's arrival, upon the grain truck being parked in the grain shed, upon being shot multiple times in the head when Brenna shot Dylan, near to the shed or inside of the shed, and then the disposing, but also possible temporary disposing and burial, and then removing the body and moving it across this way, just rotate it, so west, across the fence line, in which it's, I believe, here. Visually, it has changed with time, how it looks. So the best way for me to do this, if I just reconstruct myself, take a right turn here, and then there's a left turn. Is it that? Get off. Is it a left turn there? It's interesting how these roadways have actually faded with time. But I guess if you don't get as many people driving down, it's just not going to happen. It must be that road there, that dirt road. You follow it down to get to the west side gate, not the north gate. To here, that's the gate there. And then in parallel to the fence line here, just on the right, where it dips down, roughly in this area, that's where Dylan Round's grave, Dylan Round's final burial site was. Now, take in mind as a fact, I was the only and first person to actually cover it and reveal it on YouTube. A lot of people were talking and yapping in the background, the Bob Farrells, the JTs, but they didn't actually back it up at the time. Talking about photos here and there, may have showed the photos afterwards, but the true location with the true coordinates specifically, it just wasn't provided at the time by most humans. It was a general theme and pattern, but even the locals were that incapable and incompetent that they couldn't even show the location of Don Hatley's place. The Ty Corbins, the Lance Kellys. Oh yeah, it's over that way. Nope, nowhere near that way. Oh, it's over here. Nope. In the end, credit to Skeptical, who compared the documentary and compared it to the maps, able to find it. And maybe I can give you an example. So the original bullshit spot was here. That wasn't it, but Ty Corbin, Lance Kelly said it was incorrect. and they're locals at the time. Says a lot, doesn't it? But in fact, it was over this way, and take in mind, it's very rough to do because I normally had markers at the time, but you'd follow it down to the wash area. I can actually flip the damn thing. Let me just follow it down as it dips down to, where is it? It kind of dipped down. There we go, right there. And you'd follow that roadway, and it would spiral down to this point here, and then you take a right and follow it there. That's Don Hatley's place of living. Don Hatley's place of living and Grangeshed property over that way. I know it was a bit messy to locate, but if we zoom out, you can see. It was just hard to locate, but I do this all from my memory. And someone like Taylina, Kurt Wadsworth's daughter, failed to give the location because she said that, it's sensitive information, it could harm the case and anyone could go there and steal stuff. Well, if Don has moved away for a while and he's not coming back, then why would there be anything to steal anyway? And why would it matter that much when people will steal stuff anyway in a lawless area? And take into consideration, even though Taylina was quite firm on, I'm not going to show you the location, it was publicly viewable from the beginning of when the documentary aired publicly. Yet humans like to be awkward and make the situation more difficult. A complete comparison and similarities to the Noah Presgrove case, making it harder than what it is, making it more complex. So, that's my thoughts on the situation. You can know someone for quite some time, whether you're direct friends or not quite, but things can still go wrong at a meeting spot, wrong place, wrong time. Whenever you're physically in proximity to one another and in arm's reach, anything can happen with someone you know or someone you don't know, in which they may take things the wrong way and take it out on you. Furthermore, to conclude, what I think is, if Noah somehow survived in 2023 that specific party, either because there was no alcohol or he actually got a lift back in time before the bad thing happened, would it have completely saved him for life? No guarantee, because depending the time of when Noah wanted to join military and get out from that place, I mean, if there was still time in between, such as just recently, a day before September 4th, Labor Day, Avery's birthday, and a typical party scenario, if that occurred again, but a year later, with Noah attending, if that was possible, if he hadn't already joined the military, could he have been killed then in 2024? And if not then, 2025. For as long as you spend around the same type of people, in the same type of environments, it can, if it doesn't happen now, it just delays the inevitable to the future. And that sounds bad, but look at it with Dylan Rounds and Brenner. It didn't happen in the past, and there were so many years that passed by, but then came Memorial Day weekend, 2022, May time, 28th onwards, and you saw how that went. If it didn't happen then, it could have happened later. The only way you could have prevented it would have been if Dylan Rounds left Lucin, never returned back, or if Brenner was apprehended just before 2022 or just before May time, or even in 2021 with that arrest warrant of aggravated assault on a older individual from Montello. If it was done then and Brenner was taken away for good, which wouldn't have been the case, but if it was for other reasons, then Dylan wouldn't have to see Brenner ever again, and Dylan would be safe for as long as possible in terms of that scenario. Doesn't guarantee safety everywhere else, but you get the idea. With Noah Presgrove, if Noah was to join the military in 2023 or approaching 2024, and nothing bad happened at the party, or he was able to make it back home and then onwards, then join military and not return back to that place, not return back to Oklahoma or Terrell, not return back to those friends, he might have been okay. But you never be too sure. Anyway, that's my thoughts. All the other times, been okay, been positive, hanging out with people. Things can change in a matter of moments, in a matter of seconds, go from 0 to 100. I've seen it myself with individuals in real life. Anything and everything is possible. The most fucked up things can happen, and that could have happened with Noah too. And as we've seen with the resistance, the negativity, the threats, it doesn't come across as good in the eyes of those within the case or those that have put their foot into the case. So that's all I wanted to say for now. If we need a follow-up, we can do in the future. But this is like a viewer requested video for someone that was talking about it recently. I can't remember the name. With a code Mark or something, maybe. But let me know your thoughts down below. Feel free to like and share the video. I think there's a possible reason why the glow thing didn't happen last night on the like button. And that's to do with, if you've already liked the video, by the time of when someone says, smash the like button, it won't glow. I think that was one of the things given elsewhere when talked about. So maybe that does apply, but it doesn't really matter. Hopefully you found this video interesting, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, good night for now.